One of the most important and very common Tosca interview question you'll hear is, can Tosca count all the links on a web page? Plain and simple, but the real challenge is taking it a step further, making Tosca not just count them, but also capture their link names, URLs, and export everything into Excel automatically. That's what we are going to take a look at this video entire end to end, and stay till the end because I'm going to provide the details on where you can download this working code and try it on your system. There is also going to be a part B of this problem statement where we are going to extend the scope of this to find the broken links and then log the status into Excel as passed and failed, which is going to be available exclusively just for the members of the channel. In case you are interested, do check it out. Now let's get started. So for this exercise, we are going to use facebook.com. So let me launch this. And if you are logged in, obviously log it out or use a incognito mode or whatever works for you. So as you can see on this page, I have a link here, forgotten password. I have a link here, I have a link here, I have a link here. So many links are there, and that is always going to be present in a web page. Okay, so what first step I'm going to do is I'm going to count the number of links which are present. Okay, now second thing is, not only I want to count, I want to fetch the link name, fetch all the link names, basically all the link names. Now every link is going to have a hyperlink. For example, if I right click and if I do a open link in a new tab, you'll see it is having a different URL because it is going to navigate maybe to a different page or to the same page. It will redirect to that. That depends on how the website is designed, but we are going to fetch the related URLs as well. Okay, and after that we are going to export link name URLs in an Excel. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, this is the high level overview of what we are trying to build today. And first thing is facebook.com. So I'll just quickly copy this and I'll write the first test step. I have created a blank test case with the name. Now I'll right click and I'll just add open URL just for launching this facebook.com. I'll just add the test configuration parameter. Okay, it is already there, browser edge, so we are good. Second is, now we have launched the URL. Now I want to fetch the number of links. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go to my modules and let me explain this again because I have already scanned that before. So see, the simple logic for fetching all the links on a web page, regardless of whichever website you're going to visit, is a common property called as tag A. Okay, so let me just capture a link and I'll show you that. So if I'll capture this link, let me just click on this and capture this link. Okay, so let me maximize this, and as you can see that this is a link and this is how it is going to display in a visual format as well. Now you'll see here there's a tag called A. Now what I'll do is, just for clarification purpose, I'll fetch few more links here just to show you that this is a very common thing. In case you're not aware, if you're aware, you would already know this. So let's say I go to privacy policy, which is also a link. You'll see a tag A. Now you'll see a privacy center, you'll see a tag A. But for now we just need one link. Okay, so I'll use this specific link. Okay, now ID is something which is different for all of these, so that's why it is becoming unique. For the moment I will deselect this. Okay, now even if I'm not making it unique, that is fine. We'll talk about it, how we are going to work with this, because our first task is to just count the number of links. So even if it is not unique, it is fine. Okay, now in further sections, I'm going to fetch the URL as well as the name. So you see, for the URL, you can use href property, and you see here the link is coming. Okay, so we'll use this later. I'm just giving that information. And for the link name, you'll see inner text is capturing that value, or even the default name is capturing that value. So either of these are going to help us. Okay, I will just rename this to link for now. Okay, and I'll save this. Okay, now let's move this to the test cases, and let's first count the number of links. Okay, so I'll say count number of links. Now some of you might be a little bit confused as to, since it is not unique, how it is going to work, because we are just going to count the number of links right now. We are not going to perform an action on this. So in case you're not following that, bear with me for a second, because next I'm going to talk about how to make it unique as well. So first I'll take action mode as buffer, and here I'll click on this. There is a property, in case you have not used it, is a result count property. You have to write it as it is, and you can write whatever buffer name you want. So maybe I'll write number of links. Okay, now what this is going to do, this is going to go to the specific page and then count the number of links, because the only property which exists in this module attribute right now is tag a. Okay, now let me just run this quickly and see what we are getting. Now we are not going to manually count it, because later we will be able to see it in Excel and all, and then at that point we are going to validate that. So you see here it is saying number of links has been set to 40. So basically it is saying that this specific page has 40 links. Okay, so we were able to complete our first part. Now we'll move to the second part. Okay, now second part is going to be a little tricky, because I have around 40 links. Okay, so I have to do the iteration accordingly. And let's say I move to a different page, and then, or even on the same page, if say the number of links gets reduced, I want to handle that dynamically. But regardless of the case, in this specific section, I'm able to understand how many number of links are coming. So we are going to use that value and perform a looping operation. Now in case of Tosca, we have a feature called repetition. So what I'll do is I will right click and I'll create a folder. Now why I'm creating a folder? Because without folder you cannot use repetition. So that's why I'm creating a folder. Now either if you'll click on this, you will see something called as repetition here, or you can right click here on the top column chooser and just double click on repetition, and it is going to add here. Either way works. Now this is the buffer which I want to iterate through that many number of times. So what I'll do is, in this repetition section, I will put this as a buffer. So I'll put curly brackets b, and I'll put this value. I'll close the square brackets and curly brackets. What do I mean by this is, this is going to count 40, and then whatever is inside this is going to run for that many number of times. So that means 40 number of times it is going to run. Okay. Okay. Now the next step, we have to fetch the link names. So link names, how we'll get that? Because the initial problem what we were having here is, or not the problem, how we have scanned is, this was not unique. Okay, so what I'll do is, in this specific section, okay, instead of making it unique with id or something, because that is going to be tied to just one element, we are going to explore the feature of explicit name. Now in case you are not aware about explicit name, do learn about that. I will put that in the description as well. I have a video, you can check that out in case you're not aware. But basically what explicit name does is, it gives that extra detail to your script which can be managed at a test script level. Now let's see that. First, in the module attribute, you have to just right click, you have to click on this configuration parameter, and you have to type explicit name, and you have to give this true. Okay, now this is basically, adding this is basically giving the ability to my specific section module attribute, that you can add additional parameters, certain keywords by which you can tell me additional information. We'll take a look at that. Okay, what I'll do is I will drag and drop this thing in the repetition section. Okay, and here you see I can say #1. Okay, now the moment I say #1, what is happening is, it is taking the tag a and it is taking #1. So it is saying whatever the number of links are available on the page, perform the action on the first step. Okay. Now let's quickly see that if it works or not. So I'll just say input and I'll just say click here. Okay. Now that is where when you learn the concept of explicit name, you will feel that might not be very useful, but when you have situations like these, it is very helpful. Okay. I'll just right click on the first link. Okay. Let's run this and see if it works. Then we'll move forward. So you see it is clicking on forgotten password. Okay. Now I'll just move back. Now you see I cannot hard code this as one because I want to keep repeating it for whatever the number of times it is coming. Now how do we do that? Whenever you use repetition, repetition is basically a keyword which can be used, so it iterates how many number of times it is there. So if I'll just write here, instead of 1, if I'll write curly brackets repetition, you have to use exactly as it is. So every loop it is going to change, and that's how the number is going to change. So we'll be able to navigate through all the different links. Now we are not going to click on the links, so I'll say fetch link names for now. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll use a buffer here, and we saw two properties. We saw inner text as well as I think we saw default name, but for now let's use inner text. Okay. And let's say I'll call this as link name. Okay. Now guess that if I'm going to use this and if I'm going to run through a loop, what issue is going to happen? Okay. Now the issue, what is going to happen is every time this loop is going to run, in the second iteration, in the third iteration, or whichever is the latest iteration, it is going to replace the value with the newest value. So link name is eventually going to contain just one value, but we want to fetch all the 40 different link names, right? So in order to easily manage that, I will take help of the same keyword. So I'll copy this here from here and I'll put it here. So all the buffer list is going to have like link name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 till 40 like that. Okay. So that's how I'm able to fetch the link names. I think this is, if this is clear, let's move to the next portion. Now let's fetch the URLs as well. Okay. So I can just copy this and I can paste it here. I'll just write fetch URLs. Okay. And we saw the property href which I told. So I'll just change this to href. Now some people might get confused that here it only shows these four values. By how can we use? But you can use any property for this module attribute which it exists. So href was containing the URL names, and I will change this to call it out as URL name. Okay. Now this is going to uh, open the URL, count the number of links, perform the repetition, and let's, for the moment, we will close as well. Okay. So I'll just search close URL, sorry, close browser. Okay. And I'll just call this as Facebook. Okay. Put asterisk here. Okay. I'll close this and let's run this and see if it works. If there are any issues, we'll fix that, and then we'll move to the next part of how to export all of these into a Excel and put the values there accordingly. Okay. Now it might take 20-30 seconds. Okay. It was done fairly quickly. Let's see. So if I expand this, so this part we have already validated, but let's see this. It is coming still 40. Now in the repetition, you see it is going to work for around 40 times, right? So you see total 40 iterations are happening. Now what I'll do is I will just expand this to see is it really fetching things or not. Okay. So you see our first link was forgotten password. So as you can see, it is saying forgotten password and it is capturing the link. The second one is create a page. So this also got closed. So let me just open this and we'll see. So after this, you see create a page. This is also a link. So it is capturing create a page and then whatever the link is there. Then if I go down, it is taking Hindi as a link. Now you see English is not a link because it is still in the, like it is in the English language. If I click on Hindi here, then Hindi will become disabled. Now English is there. So at any point in time, one language is not going to be clickable as a link. Okay. So that's why it is capturing Hindi, and then whatever other languages are there, it is capturing all the things properly. Okay. So we are able to achieve this, but our next task is we want to save these values into Excel as well. We don't want to go to every time to the execution list and see what has happened. Okay. So how do we do that? Maybe what I'll do is uh, I'll first write it outside and then we'll bring it inside. Okay. So let's say create a Excel workbook log link name and URLs. Okay. Now, in order to work with Excel, we already have a lot of standard modules which we can utilize. So if you go to modules, if you're not aware, if you go to modules, standard modules, uh, you go into TBox X engines. In Excel, you will find open Excel workbook, close Excel workbook, and we would need Excel range manipulation and define Excel range. These are the four things which I need. So I'll just drag and copy this here. Okay. Now, first thing which I need to do is I need to create a Excel sheet where I want to capture the data. So let's say I'll create an Excel right here on my desktop. So I'll say Excel, and let's say I'll write it as maybe any name we can give. Okay. But let's say we'll call it as link. Okay. So I'll say desktop and I'll say link. Okay. And I have to just validate quickly that which format it took, because we have to give that specific exact specific format in the details as well. So just give me 1 second. In the properties, this has been created into XLSX format. Perfect. So I'll just click on this. I'll click on shift. Sorry, I'll click on shift and then I'll do a right click and I'll use copy as path. Okay. And I'll go here. In the workbook name, you can type anything. Okay. So let's say I'll write it as link. Okay. Or test or whatever you want. Okay. In the path, I'm going to provide the exact path because this is basically the uh, file which I'm going to refer to. Now I have already created this, so I'll pass this as false. Okay. Now this is going to open the Excel workbook for me. Okay. Now second thing would be that whenever you create an Excel sheet, you will have something called as uh, inside workbook, you'll have something called as worksheets. So you can have multiple sheets. So you can work with different sheets also, but by default it comes as sheet 1. So we are going to use that only. So what I'll do is I'll first move this here. I will move this here because close Excel workbook we are going to do in the end. Now in the second section, you'll see something called as range. Okay. So whenever you have a Excel sheet, you you have to define the range in case of Tosca, because at Excel can have indefinite number of rows and columns which you can use, but that is going to you have to define that out so that it knows how many cell or values it is going to take a look at. In case you're not aware, every cell is going to have a certain address like this A1 or J19 or B40 or something like that. So since we are going to use two values and we have 40, maybe I'll put it as 45. So I'll do A1 and B45. Okay. So sorry about this. I'll use first the define Excel range, and here I'll say first the range here. Okay. So I'll just say A1 and maybe B45. Okay. Now workbook name is going to be the same name which I'm using above, so that it knows and it forms that reference. So I'll use link. Worksheet name is going to be this sheet name, sheet 1. Okay. Now, in case you have a different name, you have created a different sheet, you can use that as well. Now, range name is something which is basically used to locate this specific start cell and end cell what you have defined. I have kept it as range. You can keep whatever name you want. It's just that we have to use the same name afterwards. Okay. Now let's jump into Excel range manipulation. So since I was using range above, I'll just put range here. Okay. And in case of close Excel workbook, I will just put the workbook name which we were using, I think, as link. So I'll just type it as link. Okay. I'll use the same path. So I'll copy this and I will put it here. And in the save part, I'll click on true. Okay. Now our basic set of steps for the Excel is ready. Okay. The only thing which we want is we want in the first row, maybe in the first row, we want the link names, and in the second row, we want the URLs. Okay. So let me just close this and I will cut from here and I'll go inside the repetition. Now, why I'm cutting and putting it inside the repetition? Because here in every iteration, it is fetching a new link name and new URL. Okay. So let's paste it here. Okay. Now, this is the place where we have to do all the modifications. Okay. Now, first thing is, you see, we have different rows and first column. Okay. So the number of row is going to change with every section. So what I'll do is the same concept which I'm doing here is going to apply here. So I'll copy this and I'll put it in the row section. Okay. And I want it in the first column. So here I'll manually say it as column #1. Okay. Now first thing, maybe I want to put link names, right? So what I'll do is I will copy this. Now I'll copy it entirely and I'll put it here. Okay. Now putting this is, I want to basically input this, right? So I'll change the action mode first to input. And here, since this was storing in this specific buffer, I have to pass the buffer. So what I'll do is I'll put curly brackets B, square brackets. I'll close the square brackets and I'll close the curly brackets. Okay. Now this is going to put the link name. Similarly, I'm going to do it for the URL name. So I'll copy this. I'll put it here. I'll explain this in a moment again. Okay. And I'll put it in the second column. So I'll put 2 and I'll copy this. And I will put the buffer here and I'll change the action mode to input. Okay. So basically you see what we are doing is everything is happening inside this repetition folder. Okay. First it is fetching the name. It is fetching the URL name. Both are getting from 2 different properties of this specific module attribute. Then what we are doing is we are opening an Excel workbook. We are defining the range so that it is able to work with all the 40 different links. We have just given a buffer of 5 more. So I've given 45, but you can keep it 40 as well. And then we are using one section to log the link name and another section to log the URL name. Then we are closing the Excel workbook and then we are closing the browser. Okay. Now let's close this and let's run this. Okay. I know we can further optimize it, this specific script, but I'm just trying to show it step by step for everyone who is expert in automation as well as who is little bit new. So I've given all the steps, but we don't need to close the Excel workbook every time. Or we can optimize the script further as well. But let's take a look at this. It might take a little bit of time in this because it is basically fetching all the values and then going and putting it in the Excel as well. And it becomes fairly easy for us to basically see the report and all. Okay. So what I'm going to do is once this is working fine, I'll export this and I'll put it and I'll provide the link. So you'll see in the description section where you'll be able to get the working code and try it on your systems as well. Okay. So this all is working fine. Let's further check the details about the links. So this is the sheet. And if I go to facebook.com, this is the first link, forgotten password, then create a page here, Hindi and things like that. Okay. Now, if I try to validate from the bottom, there is a twist here. So you'll see settings and activity log. But here, if I'll try to look for it, I'll not be able to find it. So the last one which I'm finding it is contact, uploading, and non-users. Okay. But these two extra links are coming. Now, this may happen if the website is designed in that specific way. So this link is present, but it is hidden. Maybe that is going to be displayed only for the logged in user or something like that. But if I click on inspect and let's say I'll search with activity log here. Okay. Activity log. And you'll see it is pointing on the right hand side. If you see accessible element, so it is pointing to the place which is blank. It is displayed in the white color. So it depends on how the website is designed, and these two extra links are coming because of that. So we have to be cognizant when we are validating the links like that. Now, in the description section, as I told in the start, you'll get a link where you can download this code and try it out on your system. Now, in case you're interested, do become a member of the channel to look at a part B of the video where we are going to validate if the links are broken or not. When we say broken, it means that it is not navigating to a right page and it is giving us some error or something like that. And then we are going to log all the results into this Excel sheet only. So I'll say if it is working fine, I'll say passed. If it is not, I'll say failed, and things like that. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Happy learning. Do like, share, and subscribe. Bye bye.